Okay, let me just admit everybody else that's waiting. We have 6 people. Okay. So, good morning, everybody. Let me just go on big screen so you can start. I think you can see my screen. So for participants that have joined in, please, if you can just respond by your text messages, and then so that I know everything is okay and we can make a start. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Thank you all for joining. And then let's kick off this webinar. So first of all, I'm just going to say, so it's a great pleasure for me to have you all here today. So we're going to be talking about a very important report that has come out at the start of this year, so only last month. And we have with us Craig Slater from Swift and Hannah Pitt. So before we jump into talking about the report and what it means for Africa effectively, so initially I'm just going to say that we have had a very good attendance in terms of registration. So we've had people coming from engineering world, consulting, legal, and we have professionals, candidates, and also decision makers. I know a number of you are on the call today, and others as well will be waiting for the recording. So that's great. So this is the WeBA conversation, the second for the year. So the first one was last month. So it's a monthly conversation that we're having here. So just for me to recap very quickly what the WeBA concept is. It's simply a platform that we have put together, we as Renewables in Africa, talking about the opportunities and the challenges that the African continent face in 2 sectors in particular. We're talking about the renewables energy, but also technology. And all of that against the backdrop of geopolitical events that are shaping the world and certainly shaping as well the continent. So if 1 second, yeah, there's some key house rules that we advise people to respect to make sure that we have a great conversation this afternoon. The first is obviously to turn your camera off, except the speakers if they want to share their video or not. So in this case, I don't think we will be doing that. And your microphone as well has been turned off. So if you have any question, please use the chat command to send it to me, and I'll be making sure that I direct that to the right speaker. So we're taking Q&A at the end. So please do let the speakers finish, and after that we can respond to your question. If you have any feedback, we'd be glad to receive that at source@renewables-in-africa.com. Last but not the least, we certainly want you to enjoy today and make sure you ask questions that you have, because that's what you're here for. So without any further ado, so let me carry on with the next slide. So, okay, so I just want to have a very quick introduction of what Renewables in Africa is. So Renewables in Africa, it's a 2-in-1 company. I usually call it this way. It's a clean energy engineering consultancy. We provide technical and capital raising services to developers and project consumers. So we have a few of our clients working with us in Zambia, Zimbabwe at the moment, in other countries as well. Marketing side, business intelligence. Talking about that, we released a report. I'm just going to talk about that in a couple of seconds. And we also provide brokerages and route to market for people that are interested to step into the continent. And obviously, you know us as well as being a media platform, because we want to promote and raise awareness about renewables energy across the continent. It's what we call the green gospel, and we're quite proud of doing it, because at the end of the day, it's not just about designing the solution, it's just about making sure people understand what is happening. Okay, I talked about the tracker, which is actually the recent release that we have. We launched it at the beginning of this month, and it's available. It's simply the first ever tracker that is putting together all the large-scale solar projects across the continent. And there's more than 130 entries that goes into that. And then I will encourage you to get a copy. You can get a copy from from our website. So it's online on our website. So I have one of the participant that is on camera. So if you don't mind just going off camera, so the camera should only be me or the speakers. So that would be very appreciated. Is it possible? I think we talking to Senia. If Senia can please go on off camera, that'd be good. So if not, I will do that myself as well. So okay, great, thank you. So we can continue. So now we're gonna be talking about, this is our detail. If you want to talk to us, obviously. So now talking about the GETI report. So I'm not gonna go in detail into that. I'm just gonna leave our first speaker, which is Mr. Craig Slater, which is the recruitment director, the EMEA recruitment director from Air Swift. That will cover that. And following that, we will have Hannah Pitt from Energy Jobline, who's going to talk about the insight of the report globally, looking as well at what it means for Africa specifically, and looking at opportunities and initiatives that have happened. So now, Craig, do you have control of the screen? If yes, I'm just going to pass the mic down to you.
Yes, I do. Thank you, Tony.
Excellent. So over to you now.
Okay, without further ado. So, introduction, what is GETI? The 2019 GETI report takes a deep dive into the impacts of skills gaps and the talent pipeline crisis within the energy industry. Produced by Energy Jobline and Air Swift, covering 5 sectors: oil and gas, power, nuclear, petrochemicals, and renewables. The report also provides a global and regional analysis of the salaries and remuneration, hiring rates, job opportunities, and the movement of people. The report is based on a survey of over 17,000 professionals and hiring managers from 162 countries and 151 nationalities. 60 questions covering pay and benefits, mobility, confidence, and availability of talent. The survey can be downloaded free at www.getireport.com. That's www.getireport.com. So without further ado, I'd like to share some of the findings and statistics with you. Next slide, please. Okay, key findings of the report for renewables globally. Optimism abounds in a renewables sector that has enjoyed a good year and expects even better things to come. Pay is up. The sector continues to enjoy unmatched popularity across the energy spectrum, and the sense of crisis is less pronounced than elsewhere. That said, a shock lies in store for companies that might think it's smooth sailing ahead. Pay is increasing, and 69% expects a pay rise this year. It's been a good year for renewable professionals in terms of salaries. Just over half of workers reported a pay rise, with 26% enjoying one of more than 5%. The number of unfortunate professionals suffering a pay cut has always also decreased year on year from 10 down to 5%. The feeling, though, excuse me, is that next year will be even better. 69% expect a raise next year, with 37% hoping for more than one of 5%. Both figures slightly up on 2018. Professionals based in Africa were the most optimistic, you'll be glad to know, with nearly 8 in 10 workers expecting a raise. Those in the CIS region were the least confident of a raise, with just half of the workers confident of a pay rise. However, it was South America with the most professionals worried about a pay cut. Political landscape is the biggest worry. Uniquely among the energy sectors, renewable professionals ranked the political landscape as the most worrying issue for their sector. 24% selected this concern ahead of innovation, skill shortages, and climate change. More so than any other sector, renewable depends on subsidies, which depend in turn on political goodwill, which is not always guaranteed. Engineers are the discipline most in demand. However, despite not taking the top spot, the skill crisis is very real. 31% of workers are quite worried and 15% are worried by the issue versus 20% not worried and 10% not concerned at all. Interestingly, concerns escalate among the young, and renewables is a young sector. More than half of the under 25s, at 54%, were worried against 46% of career prime professionals and 40% of those aged over 55. How pressing is the crisis? Well, just under 60% believe it will be with us within the next 5 years, including 30% convinced that it's already here. Only a tenth think the crisis won't ever hit, and 5% see it as a future problem that will take more than 10 years to arrive. The fact that 49% say their company has already been directly affected by a skill shortage versus 6% who haven't reinforces this finding. I'll hand over to Hannah for the next slide, please.
Thank you, Craig. So looking at what the report, can everyone hear me? Does that? Okay, so yeah, looking at what this means for Africa. So there are kind of three key areas that we looked at in terms of the renewable sector within Africa, and that was inclusiveness, the support within the sector from renewable candidates working, and the political landscape. So first of all, if we look at inclusiveness, great news in terms of the representation of females within the renewable industry in Africa are higher than the global average, which was 14%, and in Africa 17%. So it's great to see that that the renewable industry is represented by both male and female. Obviously, some way still to go. The other really interesting point was to look at the fresh talent coming into the sector. So of the African renewable respondents, 48% of them had under 5 years experience, and if you compare that to oil and gas in Africa, that was actually 25%. So there's a lot more young talent coming into the sector, which is, as I said, really, really good news. Obviously, the renewable sector in Africa is in more of an infant stage than in other sectors, but the good news is obviously that people are, are interested and wanting to enter into the industry. If we look at how engaged professionals are of the sector, although the political landscape, that's been kind of touched on, but although the political landscape does remain kind of troublesome for the renewable sector in Africa, professionals working in the sector still have great belief, and an incredible 89% of Africa's renewable respondents said they would pursue a career in the sector if they were to re-enter the industry now. So that's great and shows that there's obviously a lot of passion and belief in the sector. When we asked professionals, though, if they felt that their firm is doing enough to get new talent into the industry, half said yes, and the other half were no or indifferent, which shows that actually, whilst there's obviously a lot of interest amongst professionals and candidates in Africa, perhaps companies need to be doing a bit more to try to attract some of this attract some of this talent. Looking at the political landscape, the lack of advanced infrastructure and investment in the renewable sector is having a big impact on employment in the sector. 24% of the industry is currently unemployed, and if you compare that to the unemployment rate globally within renewables is 21%, so it's higher than the global average. Craig obviously talked about salaries, and that is something for the industry to really be aware of, that professionals are fairly optimistic about salaries rising. But if you look at 2018, 40% actually reported that their salaries had stayed the same. So we just need to be looking at and ensuring that companies and employers are looking at salaries as a main point of attracting talent. The other kind of key point to talk about was how attractive Africa is as a region of choice for Africa's renewable energy professionals. If you look at regions such as Germany, where the industry is thriving and investment is high, there was huge interest from all this amazing talent that exists in Africa to actually look at other regions like Europe as a favoured region to work. So if you look at Europe, for example, 31% of renewable professionals in Africa were actually interested in relocating to Europe for work. And actually, if you look at the kind of African renewable respondents as a whole, 91% of respondents said they would consider relocating for their job. So as much as there's some great talent coming into the industry in Africa, I think it's really important that we are looking at how you retain that talent and not losing so much quality talent to other regions where perhaps the renewable sector is slightly more advanced. So just moving on to the next slide. So where are the opportunities, and how are we going to exploit them? So you know, if the renewable energy investment picks up in Africa and hiring commences on larger scales, then that talent does exist in Africa right now. Although 38% of professionals did feel that the talent crisis is already here. So we do need to look at how do we make sure that professionals are staying in Africa and see Africa as being a region of choice in terms of the projects and how much investment is going into those. As I've said before, GETI does tell us that Africa's renewable professionals are engaged in the sector, but we shouldn't really take that for granted, and we need to act fast in investing into the sector and improving its infrastructure to retain its talent. 67% of oil and gas professionals would enter into the renewable industry if given the chance. So there's a real opportunity there for Africa to potentially tap into some of the oil and gas talent that exists across the region. There's nearly 40% of the younger renewable energy professionals in Africa are unemployed. So there's a huge talent pool to tap into for renewable companies. And finally, lack of apprenticeships was cited as the biggest contributor to the skills shortage. So there's a real opportunity there to offer more support to young professionals by offering more advanced apprentice programs.
Thank you, Hannah. Key initiatives in the Africa renewables job market to drive changes. There is a challenge in finding the talent required to meet future demands. The sense of crisis is potentially lower in renewables owing to its relative popularity. As with last year, renewables was the top destination for talent in other sectors looking for a change. 78% of current renewable professionals would still pursue a career in the sector if given their time again. This trend is especially pronounced amongst the young, with 85% of the under 25s still keen, followed by 78% of the 25 to 55s and 62% of those aged over 55. To get the necessary skills into the sector, the most popular avenue was to retraining existing employees at 53%. Graduates looking overseas and apprentices took the next spots. However, it's not completely plain sailing for companies in the sector. While 39% thought their firms were doing enough to attract new talent, 38% said the opposite in order to perform better on that front. 56% suggested better training would attract more talent, and 49% said clearer career progression, and 41% pointed to increased remuneration and benefits. Younger workers were less likely than their peers to cite remuneration and benefits as important to attract talent, just 30% cited this compared to 41% of those in their prime and 45% of older professionals. A similar pattern applied to a career progression. However, they were more likely to prioritize partnerships with universities and other institutions. 40% pointed to this option versus just 28% and 29% of workers in their prime and over 55 respectively. Better training was highlighted to attract talent. Even if the majority don't think the sector has quite hit crisis mode, there is a clear need for new engineers. Half of respondents said engineering was the discipline hit hardest by talent shortages, ahead of project leadership at 25%. Within engineering, mechanical, electrical and instrumentation engineers were the most needed, followed by R&D. At the same time, there's a pressing need for blue-collar talent with a real shortage of individual technical contributors. This is borne out by top reasons for skill shortage being cited as lack of apprenticeship opportunities. However, that answer change significantly depends on who you ask. Older professionals overwhelmingly cited the retiring workforce as the biggest concern, with apprenticeships a distinct second. For under 25s, though, the apprenticeships are number one, far outstripping any other worry. The type of skills most affected talent shortages are problem solving, leadership, strategic planning, and process management. Developing local talent should be a key priority. A lack of previous investment has limited skills, development, and opportunities. By far, the biggest shock for the renewables sector in this year's survey is the challenge in retaining talent. Last year, only 43% of professionals said that they were open to changing sectors. This year, that contentment seems to have dissipated, as 77% are now open to a move. Power and oil and gas are the most popular destinations. The reasons for moving echo those given in other sectors. Career progression was first, interest in wider industry second, with innovation and technology following. In summary, on the surface, it looks like a great year for the renewables sector. Most professionals enjoy pay rises and expect more. Most would enter the sector again if choosing from scratch, and though there is a skill shortage, renewables has the pull to attract talent from other sectors if necessary. Yet despite all these strengths, the sector is threatened by a new and sizable challenge in keeping hold of talent. Next slide. So I'd just like to share some statistics with you from our survey and then open it up for any questions. Next one. All these can be downloaded on www.getireport.com.
Okay. That's have you given me back the
Yes.
hand? Okay,
yes.
Good. So let me just share now. Okay, I can share that. I'm just gonna go back to your slide. So that's the slide you want me to show at the end, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's just the statistics that we'd like to share with the audience and participants once we finish this webinar.
Okay. No, that's great. Thanks for that. It was quite insightful, short and sweet. We call it. I have had questions for you. So the first question, obviously, usually the way it runs. So we talk about the question without necessarily saying who is asking the question to protect the person, and then we have one of you responding to that. So the first question is asking. So we talked about more than 70,000 respondents from 162 countries. So the question is, how did you manage to achieve such high stats in terms of people that participate? Can you please tell us a bit more about ways you have achieved that and different partners? It could be either you, Craig, or Hannah.
Hannah, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, sure. So we have access between Swift and Energy Jobline. We have access to a huge percentage of the energy population. So we conducted the survey by promoting it out to each of our own individual audiences, and we also partnered with partners like Renewables in Africa and lots of other news media sites globally that have their own individual big reach, and they promoted out the survey on Air Swiss and Energy Jobline's behalf as well. So it was great, and that's what makes this survey so unique in comparison to others, in that we do have the collaboration of industry partners globally that are really supporting and promoting out the survey.
Okay.
Just to add to that, Tony, just a bit of background on our inputs, if you like. So we're Air Swift. We've been going around 35 years. We're an oil, gas, and power recruitment company. We've 58 offices globally, and we have around 8,000 to 10,000 contractors working for us on a daily basis around the world, including Africa, of course. So we reached out to those with Hannah and her database, and that's how we collated the very accurate, actually, information, which, these surveys, this is a real-time survey because the guys are working for us now, or they're certainly in contact with us. So it's good, solid information and data.
Okay, thanks for that. And I can confirm to the person who asked the question that effectively we have been participating into the GETI report. We saw that as very important for renewables in Africa because you mentioned that in your presentation, both of you, that training the candidate in order to step into the industry, we see that as very, very important, and we believe that we don't talk enough about it. That's why we were keen, first of all, to participate, but also to make sure that we can spread the word and raise some awareness about that as well. So that's
good.
That was very key. So thanks for that. So second question is, there has been said that 80% of African candidates saw a pay rise compared to other regions, which is actually quite high. And the person was actually asking from what basis? I mean, from what start? Because 80% sounded quite huge compared to the other, and they were just curious to talk about the salary, the wages that they're having. So if we're starting from 1,000 all the way to 5,000, obviously that's huge. But yeah.
Yeah, interestingly, if you go back up one slide.
Okay.
Excuse me.
That's okay.
You can see that's a real-time Africa example of the salary dates and ranges there for your.
Okay. So yeah.
Questionnaire, if you like. So you can see there that the average salary, this is a staff salary on the right hand side, and on the left hand side is a contract salary, a day rate.
Okay.
In US dollars.
Let me see if I can show that. If I can show that, yes, good.
You can see. So if we just take a random one, like a biomass engineer at the top there, you can see that the average from our survey of going out is $270 per day.
Okay.
$37,000. Per year on the right hand column.
Okay.
So that was all the data. I mean, we place these people, so we know that's accurate. And obviously we've gone out to them and asked the questions, and they've come back and said, yeah, I've got a percentage increase or whatever that may be. So that's why. So that's real time. That's that's accurate data for your webinar viewers and listeners to to take away and digest and perhaps speak to their hiring managers.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's interesting. And when I see those figures, so because if I look at those salaries, that looks good for the African region because of the living standard are obviously lower. So I'm actually quite impressed. So we're not too far from oil and gas. Am I making a mistake, or is it good?
It's similar.
Yeah. So, okay. So basically, the perception that people don't earn enough in the sector is not quite true. Then.
No, absolutely not.
Okay. It's a massive perception issue. So a lot of people from outside the renewable sector perceive that the salaries are going to be much lower in the renewable sector, but we've seen globally salaries increase in the sector, and as you quite rightly pointed out, they're not too far away from oil and gas at all. So, which is why we're seeing so much interest in the renewable sector from other energy sectors as well. So a lot of people working in oil and gas are interested in making that move over to the renewable sector. So it's a great opportunity, I think, for Africa to kind of tap into that oil and gas market and to really promote some of the benefits of working in the renewable industry.
No, that's great. And I have another question for you, which is saying that 48% of the workforce is under 5-year work experience, which is quite good, obviously. So, do you believe this is because this is a young sector and young people believe more into climate change, renewables energy compared to adults, or is there any other reason?
I 100%. It's. I mean, if you look at the renewable sector, obviously it is in its infancy, and compared to oil and gas, you are going to see a higher percentage of people with less years experience. But you know, when we talk to any of the universities that we partner with, and we listen to what undergraduates and younger people are telling us, by far they're more interested in green, clean energy than they are going into the oil and gas sector. So there's an incredible opportunity there for the renewable sector globally, and obviously within Africa to be tapping into that talent. And that's why it's so important that the industry really is looking at schemes like apprentice schemes, because that desire is certainly there from younger people.
Okay. And if I can just rebound to that, so that's a subsequent question, but that's coming more from my personal experience when I started my career into the sector. So when you have a candidate that is interested, specifically you, Energy Job Line and Air Swift, would you tend to prioritize job experience or skills that could be transferable?
I would say both. Is the quick answer, depending on the requirements and the location and lots of other factors in there. But I would certainly say both, and we have placed both, obviously.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think there's definitely been clients that we've worked with, so companies kind of probably a few years ago were very keen to hire within their own sector, but we've definitely seen that change over the last few years, and companies are definitely now more interested than ever in hiring people from other energy sectors. Our last year's GETI report actually showed that 3/4 of hiring managers would actually prefer to hire from outside the sector from within which they're recruiting, because it brings kind of fresh perspective and a whole new way of thinking. So I definitely agree with Craig. I think both are factors to be considered, as well as a whole host of other factors when hiring managers are looking at professionals.
Okay. Thanks for that. I think it's always very helpful. In my case, I know when I started a career, that was about 10 years ago, in the sector, I had a bit of a struggle because I was coming from automotive background, and then yes, it was difficult to find a firm that was willing to look into my experience and my skill that I've developed and to give me an opportunity. And yes, I essentially ended up having to take different routes that we can talk about in another webinar. But it's good to see that the industry seems to be changing, and because of the skill shortages, talent shortages, so they're willing to look at people in other sector and encourage them to step into the market, which is quite good. So let me jump to the next question, which is an interesting one, and is asking, where do specifically those job requests coming from? What countries, if you have an idea, in Africa?
Yeah, I mean, we work in places like Mozambique, South Africa. Obviously, we work in Ghana, we work in Angola, Algeria. So it's straight across the whole of Africa. It's where the investment is, obviously. I think that's the key thing. Wherever the investment is where we will place engineers. And until, the investment becomes a bit more solidified, and it's difficult to say where, but there is pockets of Africa that are very pro. There's a lot of microgrids, as you're more than aware of, I'm sure, that we're trying to link up at the moment, or big companies are trying to link up at the moment. But I would say, right across Africa.
Okay, just a quick question for me. So when you say there's a number of candidates that you're placing around the continent, are these candidates coming from Africa directly, or they are actually coming from other part of the world and wanting to?
It's an interesting question. The reason I say it's interesting is that there is a big push at the moment for localization. So we tend to be one of the companies of choice for localization, for finding locals rather than bringing expats into country. So I would say I'm a bit biased because our company is very pro placing local people in local jobs. So we tend to do that, to place local people. Okay,
that's quite good then. So anything to say, Anna, or should I move into the next question?
No. I mean, I kind of echo what Craig said, in that I think certainly the work that we do with Swift is all around kind of local talent. But I think kind of one of the kind of key findings within GETI was the alarming percentage of local talent that is looking to relocate to other regions. So I definitely think that's something that the industry really needs to look at in Africa, is, how do you retain that local talent and make sure that that the support is there within region to be attracting and retaining that talent.
Yeah, and that's a great point you're making. So I pay attention to that when you were saying that. And my question to you then is, according to you, I know it's a difficult one, I give it to you, but according to you, what are the solutions we could be looking at to make sure we can retain this talent into the sector? Because that's a big shame. Is, first of all, there is a shortage of skills, and if the few good people that are there are not looking to move away because they have various issues that they want to solve, they want better opportunities. So how can we reduce this rate, according to you? It could be you, Hannah, or Craig.
Okay, I think the Minister of Energies for your countries need to get some more investment. There is investment coming from various sources, AFDBs and so on and so forth, but it's purely investment. I understand a young African engineer wanting to go and work in Germany because the projects are very well funded. So it all comes down to a lack of funding, in my opinion. And the more lobbying companies like yours and steering groups like yours can do to local government and national government to make that investment into renewables for Africa can only be a good thing, because you have some really, really good engineers that unfortunately you will lose. They will move out. There's three things in the recruitment industry that we work: it's attract people, train people, and retain people. I think you're attracting them, I think you're training them, but I don't think you're retaining them because there isn't enough investment there to keep them there. So I think just lobbying to government for investment and for these companies to come and erect these wind farms, for example, in Africa.
Yeah, it's a little bit like you training them and you give them for free for somebody when they're in the best years.
Exactly that. I think that's something that's a shame. It's great for the rest of the world, of course, but not great for Africa.
Okay, no, that's great. Let me move into the next question, which is a simple one. Congratulations in setting up the GETI report. It's actually very interesting to look at insight across the world and in Africa. Where did you get the idea from?
Hannah?
Sorry, can you just repeat that? Where did we get the idea? So it cut out a bit just before that.
The idea.
So it's simply the person is saying that the GETI report is a beautiful idea, and just want to understand where does, because this is on the second edition. and then I believe that's correct, right? So
third one.
I had the impression that there was something wrong there. Yeah, the third one. Sorry, I just joined in this year.
Don't worry.
Yeah. So the idea is, the question is, where did you get the idea from, both AirSwift and Energy Jobline?
Sure. So AirSwift is one of our key partners of Energy Jobline. So AirSwift and Energy Jobline, we got together and we looked at the industry and what we felt was lacking in the industry, and that was having real market intelligence to give hiring managers and professionals kind of answers to questions that we were regularly getting asked. And given the kind of demand within the market, we felt that there was a real opportunity to produce a report that would become a global leading piece of thought leadership that anybody in the energy industry could have a look at and can give us some of those answers. So it was a kind of an idea from about 4 years ago that we put together. And it's grown and grown every single year. So it's been it's been a real kind of collaborative process. And what's been really exciting is to see the kind of progress that we've had. Having the involvement of all of our partners over the last few years, and the amount of press that GETI has now picked up. So every year, we're now referenced by leading news sites that are publishing the data that we're putting out to the industry. So I think from speaking on behalf of AirSwift and Energy Jobline, it's been great to kind of give something back to the industry and to give that kind of information that people are really looking for and needing. So it's been a lot of hard work. I think kind of AirSwift would agree with me on, but it's incredibly rewarding, and it's fantastic to see the uptake and the amount of buy-in that we now get from the industry from it. I don't know if there's anything else that you'd add to that, Craig.
No, just the fact that as speaking as a recruiter, we reference to it a lot to educate some of the hiring managers around the world when they're looking to hire somebody, or just to make sure that their salaries are in line with the industry. It's a really good reference point, and yeah, it has been hard work, but certainly worth it.
Okay. So that's great.
It's going to be around for years to come.
And we're hoping that we'll be able to accompany you in making sure we can deliver even better results. So yeah, so thanks for that.
Thank you.
Next question is, solar is the darling of the market in Africa. Do you see the same in terms of opportunities for African candidates? So essentially, looking at the opportunity that you see for various candidates, do you still see more opportunity for solar than any other technologies?
I'll go. I mean, wind, solar, hydro, geothermal, biomass. We don't see, not particularly in Africa where you would think so, but wind is very, very strong, and also the off-grid production, that's pretty busy at the moment over there. So it is the darling of our industry, but it's certainly not the most prominent. I think other sectors are coming along and as being as strong, or if not stronger.
Okay. And then how much of a threat you believe renewable present to oil and gas? Because I particularly for myself looked at one stat that you mentioned, which is saying 67% of oil and gas workers will consider entering the sector if given a chance, which if it happens, that's the other way around now. So it would be great for renewables, but oil and gas obviously will be missing out. So
I think if you look to other regions that are perhaps further ahead in terms of the evolution of this, you can certainly see that, especially with the downturn in the oil and gas industry, that the renewable industry is kind of, has really made the most of that and has hired a lot of oil and gas talent. the market is coming back from an oil and gas perspective. So now the renewable industry really does need to look at how it holds on to those candidates. But I think in terms of it being a threat within Africa, goes back to the point that Craig was making earlier about the level of investment in the renewable sector. I think if the renewable sector in Africa got the level of investment that perhaps it needs, there's an incredible opportunity there. And I think it would be a big threat to the oil and gas industry. But as it exists right now, I don't think that there's a huge risk to the oil and gas industry. I think the industry needs a lot more investment at the moment for it to be really considered very attractive.
Okay. And do you have any idea of, in terms of investment, how much we're talking for the training? So is that something that you picked up in your report, or not necessarily?
It's not something that we, the investment into apprentice programs was definitely something that was picked up, and we know that 44% of professionals cited the lack of apprenticeships as being kind of a major contributor to skill shortages. So definitely having more investment into kind of attracting and training talent, absolutely. But in terms of the kind of investment that the renewable industry needs as a whole, in order to invest in kind of infrastructure and technology, I mean, I really couldn't say what that would look like, but I think it needs to be significantly more perhaps than what it is right now. Okay,
thanks for that. Another question for you. So person is asking, so how much of a collaboration do you guys do with ARENA? Because ARENA is also producing a report regarding capacity building for renewables. So has there been any?
None from me.
No.
Not heard of them. So.
No, there has. I mean, in terms of GETI report, there hasn't been any collaboration with ARENA, but every year we look to make GETI bigger and better, so that might be something we could look at for next year.
Oh, and that's great, and I'll be pleased to tell you that I can definitely help out on in this way, because I have some connection in ARENA, and yes, I'm personally also aware of this report that they put together. It would be good to sort of look at both reports and looking at where are the gaps and how can we fill them, and make sure that we can get something that's more collaborative. And yeah.
But I mean, that would be great. I mean, we really do passionately believe, both AirSwift and Energy Jobline, that GETI is a report by the energy industry for the energy industry. So the more partners and the more collaboration, the stronger the report is. So absolutely, any introductions you can give us would be fantastic.
Okay, that's great. So I have one more question that's for somebody, and after that, I think I would have gone through all the questions that I have received here. The question is asking, from the 70,000 that responded to your questionnaire, so how many of them were from Africa? If you have an idea, or percentage, because the number, it would be difficult to have it.
That's a great question. I don't have the number to hand. I don't know, Craig, whether you do, but
I'm just pulling up the stat now.
Is there maybe somewhere in your slide? Okay, not a problem. So, yeah. I think the one thing I can say...
Tony, it was in the thousands. I can't pull it. I'll send it to you after this, but it was in the multiple thousands. Okay. And the one thing I was going to say personally from that is having done a number of reports now, because that's one of the things that we do, Market Insight, and collaborating with other partners like Energy Jobline and AirSwift here. So we, when we putting together reports like that, which we believe are very useful for the industry, it always amazes me to see how much people actually don't want to collaborate as such, because when they see a survey coming their way, I know we're all busy, but if we understand that at the end of the day, it's going to benefit everybody, sometimes I believe it's worth our time to respond to this question and make sure that we can address things properly. So that's something I have seen. Okay, I have a question. So this is for Craig.
Mr. Craig said the company is around in Africa. I didn't hear about Tanzania. And also last year, I attended Climate Launchpad. It was not such a company that support newcomers in my field. My question is, how do they connect with that type of people? So they seems to be challenging a little bit here, Craig,
yeah.
but I'm sure you have a valid response. So the person is asking, are you in Tanzania? And basically, he has not been able to connect with you. And
yes, we're in Tanzania. So if he goes onto our website, which is airswift.com, and he looks up the locations, the 58 locations that we're in globally, he will see a section for Africa, and within that he can drill down to Tanzania.
Okay, actually, that's a good point. Do you attend conferences and summits for clean energy?
Do we attend?
Yes. Do you guys attend? Okay.
I mean, one of our strategic goals, if you like, is to try and push through to align ourselves with the clean growth strategies of countries like Africa. I mean, only this morning I was reading the Agenda 2063 document. So there is lots of things that we can get involved in, and there's lots of things that we can't. I'm just pulling up that Tanzania address for you. Actually, it is Dar es Salaam. So yeah, I'll send it to you after this, and you can forward it on to the gentleman. But yeah, so we do have a site. But we'll attend as many events as we possibly can globally.
Okay.
And yeah, absolutely. So
yeah. I think I would recommend to the person that obviously I know who the person is, to make sure that they get in touch with me. And what we do is we're going to get the response from Craig and send that to you. So hopefully the person will be satisfied. I had a subsequent question just when we say we're going to wrap up. So this question I keep it even more. And the person was asking about, is there a database for renewable energy experts in Africa and across the world? So yeah,
we have one, yes.
Okay, and is it available for sale, or how do they get hold of it?
So our clients will. So basically, we massage that database on a regular basis. So we have many consultants that work for us in Africa. That we'll check in with these guys, just to see if they're open to opportunities, if they're looking for a new job, if whatever the situation seems to be, and then we hold that. And then when our clients are ready to employ these people, we'll reach out to the people that we've been speaking to, along the journey, to make sure that they are presented with the best opportunities in the market at that time.
Okay, so it's purely then for the benefit of your client. So if, for example, you have a person that's making an inquiry, so how would they get?
Just for our clients, yeah.
Okay, they need to become That's a fair point. Hey, Hannah, yeah, go ahead.
Are they looking if they're looking to access obviously a database, or if they're looking to register themselves onto a database, they can go on to www.energyjobline.com as well and register onto our searchable CV database as well, which AirSwift has full access to as well.
Okay, and thank you for mentioning that, Hannah. I just realized that we didn't get a chance to speak about that yet. I know we still have a couple of minutes here. Would you mind, both of you, actually sharing a quick word on how, because there are many candidates that will want to step into the sector, how they can connect with you as a candidate, and for you then to place them into their client? Can you talk about the process very quickly so that they understand that? Because you are recruitment agencies, and it's very important for people that are around.
Yeah, okay. So AirSwift is a staffing agency, which I will let Craig explain more about, because he can do it a lot more justice than I can. Energy Jobline is an intermediary. So we're an online recruitment platform. So we advertise about 26,000 jobs at any one time, from leading recruitment and staffing and companies. So if anybody is looking for a job, obviously they can go onto www.energyjobline.com and search and look for jobs and apply to those jobs through the platform. So we're a digital platform, so we don't we wouldn't get involved on a kind of one-to-one candidate basis, because we have about a database of over 1.5 million candidates and about 250,000 people using our site every month to find a new job. So we obviously can't give that kind of one-to-one attention, but it's certainly an arena for you to go on and find the jobs that you'd be potentially looking to apply for. And as I said, there's a resume database as well that companies like Swift have full access to and can use to find the right talent for jobs that they're looking for. I would just obviously, if anyone does have any questions regarding their CV or wanting to make sure that they're kind of standing out from the rest, I'm more than happy for people to connect with me, and the team here can give any advice. But as I said, we can't represent you on a one-to-one basis like Swift can.
Yeah, Swift. So we, as I said to you before, we're a global company, so we have 800 staff working for us that is available to obviously meet the needs of the candidates and clients that we represent. We're available obviously on the old-fashioned telephone, but certainly on swift.com, Facebook, LinkedIn is pretty big for us, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram. I'll send all these to you, Tony, after the webinar, which you can share with your delegates. But we're more than available on many different social platforms to help any candidates out who are looking for work, and to help any clients that are looking for good candidates.
And that's great to hear. And what I'm just going to say to finish up is just to remind people that we have established a partnership with Energy Job Lines, Renewables in Africa. And what it means for us is simply that we are posting job opportunities that are happening in Africa. So by visiting our website, www.renewablesinafrica.com, so you should be able to see these opportunities that we have. This is for candidates. That's to respond to some of the queries that they directing to us. Obviously, we are not a recruitment agency, but we work the likes of Energy Job Line and definitely probably as well with Swift in coming future to make sure that we can help people that are willing to step into the market, into the industry. So just last words, Hannah, Craig, and we can close the discussion for today.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting us to do this webinar. I hope it was insightful. I know it was a lot of statistics from my end, but we'd love to share with you all this data. If you could just download it free at www.getireport.com. And thank you so much for everybody for attending.
And I would completely echo Craig's sentiment in that, it's great that everyone's taken part. It's great that the industry is so interested in what we have to say. Our partnership with Renewables in Africa is incredibly important. And a big thank you, Tony, for organising this and setting this up.
Okay, thank you very much. And thank you also to all the delegates that were able to make it today. I know a number couldn't make it, but I know that they'll be looking forward to listen to the recordings. And we're obviously going to be sharing that together with the presentation that Energy Job Line and Elsewhere put together. And then thank you for supporting Renewables in Africa. Thank you for supporting WIBA, which is what is best for Africa. And we're hoping that we'll be able to bring to you another very insightful topic for discussion. So all I have to say now is have a great rest of your day, and we will be speaking to you, coming back to you soon. And don't forget about the solar tracker, the first one, large scale solar. So I will invite you to purchase a copy from us. So thank you very much. And then all I have to say now is have a great day. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.